My name is Ethan Carter, and according to the file I found that night, I was never supposed to exist. I know how that sounds. I know you're leaning back thinking it's a metaphor, some philosophical statement about purpose. I wish it were. With everything in me, I wish it were. What I found wasn't poetry. It was a classified government document, 47 pages long, heavily redacted, and right there in plain black ink on page 3 was my name. Not just my name, my height, my blood type, my date of birth, my psychological profile from age 7. At the top of every single page, stamped in red letters so dark they looked almost violent, were 2 words, Project Echo. Let me take you back. Because this didn't start with that file, it started with a power outage, a broken laptop, and a Tuesday night in October I will never forget. I was 25, living alone in Portland, working remote IT support, spending evenings teaching myself network security. Nobody remarkable. Just a guy with too much coffee and too many browser tabs open. My old laptop had been acting strange for a week. Slow boots, random freezes. So that night I ran a deep diagnostic and plugged in an external hard drive I hadn't touched in 3 years. That's when the power went out. Just my apartment. I went to the breaker box, flipped the switch, everything came back. But when I returned to my laptop, something had changed. The file explorer was open, showing the external drive. And there, in a directory I had never created, never named, never seen before, was a folder called simply Echo 17, Carter, S17. Carter. I told myself it was a backup I'd forgotten, some old work file. I told myself a lot of things in those 30 seconds before I double-clicked. The folder opened. 47 PDF files. Each one stamped with a federal agency seal belonging to a division so obscure its Wikipedia page had been deleted. I opened the first file, and my whole life cracked open like an egg. I need to tell you about my family, because you need to understand what made the next part so devastating. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. My parents, Sarah and David Carter, were the kind of parents other kids envied. Mom baked. Dad coached Little League. We had a golden retriever and a minivan with a dent. Dad always said he'd fix and never did. Aggressively, almost cartoonishly normal. I was genuinely close with them, not the performative kind, the kind where you actually call when something good happens. I called my mom after my first real job, called my dad after my first heartbreak. That was just what we did, which is why what I was reading felt like the floor turning to water beneath my feet. The first document was an intake assessment dated 25 years ago. The subject was listed as a male infant, 6 pounds 4 ounces, born via something called an echo placement protocol. Subject designation, S17. Under cover identity, there was a name, Ethan James Carter. I read it 3 times. Then I pushed back so hard my chair hit the wall. I walked to the kitchen. I ran cold water over my hands for no reason. I came back. The name was still there. The document described a government-created identity falsified birth records, a manufactured family history, and what it called behavioral integration monitoring, meaning someone, somewhere, had been watching me grow up. I flipped to page 9 and found the section titled Host Family Briefing Carter, David and Sarah. My parents knew. I called Emily. Emily Ross has been my closest friend since college, the kind of person who picks up on the second ring at midnight without making you feel guilty. She's also a journalism grad student, with an instinct for sniffing out institutional lies that borders on supernatural. Ethan. Her voice was groggy, but immediately alert. What happened? Come over, I said. Bring your laptop. She was at my door in 20 minutes. I watched her face as she read, watched the skepticism drain out, replaced by something I'd never seen on her before. Genuine unease. This federal seal, she said. I've seen something like this. Cold War-era human studies programs. She looked up. Ethan, this looks real. I know. Where did you get this? It It was on a drive I've had for 3 years and never gone through. Emily, my name is in here. My birth stats, my parents' names. She put the laptop down and looked at me the way you look at someone whose house is on fire while they're still standing in it. Okay, she said. Then we figure out what Project Echo is. 4 hours of cross-referencing, archived government records, declassified documents. What we pieced together was this. Project Echo was a behavioral research program from the early 1990s, studying identity formation in individuals raised under what it called manufactured origin conditions. Plain language, they created fake identities for real children, placed them with briefed families, and monitored those children's development over decades. The program existed to answer one question someone in government had deemed critical. Can a person be fully functional, completely unaware of who they actually are? I was subject 17, and the answer, apparently, was yes. Then, at around 3 a.m., my laptop's network activity light started blinking. Rapid, rhythmic, even though I hadn't opened a browser. Someone is watching this connection, I said quietly. Right now. Emily closed the laptop instantly. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The voice was calm, practiced. The kind of calm that isn't natural. Mr. Carter, my name is Agent Marcus Reed. The file you access tonight is classified. What you do in the next 24 hours will determine how your situation is resolved. Do not share what you found. Do not contact anyone connected to the program. Do you understand? I looked at Emily. She had gone completely still. I understand, I said, and I hung up. We left my apartment 8 minutes later. In Emily's car at 6 a.m., I called my mom, just to hear her voice. I didn't say anything about what I'd found, just said I was having trouble sleeping. She said, "Oh, sweetheart, you've always had those nights. Remember when you were little, you'd crawl into bed between me and your father, shaking like a leaf, but you'd never tell us what the nightmare was. I had to cover my mouth to keep the sound in." "I remember," I said. "You okay, baby?" "Yeah, Mom, I'm okay." I was not okay. One section of the file had listed Dr. William Hayes, Ph.D., as the program's lead scientist. I found him in 20 minutes 60 years old, retired from federal research in 2015, living quietly in Millhaven, Oregon, 4 hours from Portland. We didn't call ahead. We just drove. Hayes answered on the second knock. White-haired, slightly stooped, but his eyes, when he saw me on his porch, went wide with something that wasn't surprise. It was recognition. And behind the recognition, terror. "You found it," he said. Not a question. "Can we come in?" He made coffee. I think his hands needed something normal to hold. Then he sat across from us at his kitchen table and told us everything. Project Echo began in 1993 under a classified directive. 17 children without documented origins were assigned identities, placed with recruited families, monitored for decades. The families were told it was a long-term behavioral study. They were told the children would never be harmed. They were told the subjects would be debriefed at age 25 and given the choice of what to do with the information. They were told the subjects would never find out early. "My parents," I said. "David and Sarah Carter." He nodded slowly. "They were good people. They believed they were doing something sanctioned, something important." "And my biological parents?" I said. The file mentioned an Annex C classified above everything else. Hayes set down his mug. "The reason that section was buried," he said carefully, "is because your biological origin isn't just sensitive. It's explosive." He looked at me. "Your biological father was the program director, a man named Senator Gerald Voss. He had a child with a woman who wasn't his wife. When she realized what was happening, she tried to go public. She died in a car accident in 1995. He paused. "Gerald Voss is currently chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee." The kitchen was very quiet. "And that's why Reed wants this buried," Emily said. "Reed doesn't work for oversight," Hayes said. "He works for Voss, has for 15 years. We left Hayes with Annex C, a physical copy he'd kept hidden 30 years, and drove back toward Portland. 30 miles out, A black SUV cut us off on a 2-lane highway and forced Emily to brake hard. 2 men got out, and from the passenger side, Reed. Taller than I'd imagined, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples. The expression of a man who has spent decades making problems disappear and is frustrated this one keeps coming back. He walked toward my side of the car. I got out to meet him, because sitting inside felt like surrender. "Mr. Carter, hand over what Hayes gave you and walk away." "Or what? This becomes complicated for everyone you love." No raised voice, no drama. That's what made it terrifying. "My parents raised me," I said. "Whatever their arrangement was, whatever they were paid, they loved me. That's real." I stepped toward him. "You're going to threaten them?" He studied me for a moment. Then something shifted. "You look like him," Reed said. "Like Voss. Same jaw." "I know, I read the file." I held up my phone. A draft email, already addressed to 11 journalists, 3 senators, and the editor of the Washington Post. Emily sent it before we got out of the car. Everything, documents, files, the annex. It sends the moment she hits a button. I looked at him. "We're not your problem anymore, Agent Reed. We're everybody's story." He was still for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stepped aside. "I called my parents that night. My dad picked up, and I could tell from the way he said my name that he already knew. 'Did you love me?' I said. 'Or was I a project?' Silence. And then my strict, composed, never cries in front of the kid's father made a sound I had never heard from him before. Something shattered and helpless. 'You were never a project to us. The day they put you in your mother's arms, you were ours. Whatever that piece of paper says, it doesn't say anything about what you mean to us.' My mother got on the phone and didn't explain or make excuses. She just said my name, over and over, the way you say something when you're terrified of losing it. 'Ethan, I'm so sorry.' I told her I wasn't angry. I don't know if that was entirely true, but it was the truest thing available to me. The story broke 6 days later. Reed was suspended within 48 hours. Voss resigned before the week was out, citing health reasons that fooled approximately nobody. Hayes gave a voluntary statement, 83 pages of confession, 30 years of guilt unfolding all at once. The other 16 subjects were identified and notified. Some are furious. Some are grief-stricken. One, I'm told, walked away, entirely chose to simply return to the life they'd built, knowing everything. I understand that choice. My brother Noah called me that week. He hadn't known, which meant, in a strange way, he was the one person I could talk to without the weight of kept secrets pressing between us. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't know yet. Ask me in a year." "You're still my brother. That doesn't have a document. That's just true." I've thought about that a lot. That's just true. I've been sitting with one question ever since. Not the political one. Not accountability or legislation. Other people are working on those. Mine is simpler. And harder. Who am I? I have a biological father I've never met, and will likely never want to. I have parents who raised me under contract and chose, somewhere along the way, to love me anyway, which might be the most human thing a person can do. I have a name that was invented for me. A childhood that was monitored by strangers in an office building. And I have 25 years of memories that feel, right now, entirely like mine. Every embarrassing thing I ever said. Every time I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. Every morning the sun came through the window at just the right angle. And I thought, briefly, I'm glad to be here. Nobody manufactured those moments. Nobody put those in a file. That's mine. The file said I was never supposed to exist. And maybe, by the metrics of whatever shadow program decided to build a life around a child without his knowledge, that's technically true. But I do exist. I'm here. I'm talking to you right now. Whatever is real about a person isn't in the paperwork. It's not in the birth certificate, or the government record, or the file stamped in red. It's in the part they didn't monitor. The part they couldn't. My name is Ethan Carter. Whether or not I was meant to be. Share